my name is Sabine, and welcome to our panel discussion. As she said, we are all working in the crypto space and are crypto enthusiasts and founders, and we all live in Malta, different fields, the panel is about to introduce the blockchain island in Malta and to show that Malta is still a very big crypto hub, and that there is amazing people working on this island, and also the government is supporting entrepreneurs with Malta Enterprises. They have a booth outside where they bring great businesses and companies to Malta and support them with financially and other ways. Like Taylor Freeman, he moved from California to Malta because of the support of the Maltese government. So to me, I live here 4 years and I work for Fun Token, which is the #1 gaming token. And we are building a whole gaming and crypto ecosystem with online casinos, and we are very liquid, and we have our own non-custodial wallet. And yeah, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, first of all, thanks guys for having me here. My name is Emilio. I've been working in the crypto space since 2017. And I have been leading, together with other people, of course, like the development of the Aave protocol, which is the largest DeFi liquidity protocol by TVL. And yeah, I mean, that's mostly the field that I've been working with, but recently I've also been involved in the development of the Lens protocol, which is a social media protocol, and recently moved to Malta as well, and I found here an amazing community, so yeah, can't wait to have this panel.
Thank you, Sabine, for hosting this. Sabine is one of the first people, actually, that I met when I moved to Malta about 9 months ago as part of the crypto community here, which has been genuinely incredible. And I moved from California, so I was living between Los Angeles and San Francisco, where there's a lot of technology, a lot of innovation, but I can genuinely say that the community here has been more empowering, more excited, more intelligent, to my friends in California, I'm sorry, but really it's been a big surprise and a shock. I didn't know too much about Malta before coming, but I'm super, super excited to be here. My background is in the virtual reality space mainly, so I've been working in that industry for almost 10 years now. And about 3 years ago, I started a company called Axon Park, which is basically building a virtual campus in the metaverse where students from around the world can come in and basically play games to learn and interact with each other in these virtual worlds rather than just watching flat videos on a screen. And there are a lot of tokenomics involved in this and Web3 implementation, which is why I'm here. But that's just a quick overview. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sabine, for having me. Thank you for including me in this panel. I feel very, very happy to be around such amazing people. I'm Zack. I'm an artist. I'm in the industry of intellectual property. I turned Malta into a cartoon, a bunch of cartoon characters. And me being an artist, I got really curious about NFTs, and I got to explore them at a very early stage. And also created a small community called NFT Club, where we educate people about NFTs, and we showcase talent. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you, Sabine, for having me here. I'm Jacob. I'm Maltese. I am founder and CEO at Sonar. What we're doing right now is we're building the first operating system and holistic suite of tools for Web3. As the other guys have said, yeah, I mean, the crypto community here has been amazing. Even though I've been in the space for quite a few years, it's this year that I really got into the Malta side. I've been working with everyone around the world, but actually not in Malta so much. But this year, first of all, we opened our company here and also started getting into the community side of things. Yeah, it has been amazing.
Thank you. So let's start with our first question. What do you think is the biggest issue for mass adoption of Web3 and crypto?
Yeah, I'll actually start this with a question. I think the biggest problem right now can be described as accessibility, right? So if you're walking down the street and you find someone, and you give them a smartphone, tell them, look, you've got $100 in your bank account, and you've got 10 minutes to get it in a DeFi wallet in Bitcoin, for example, and whatever it is. How possible is that? Would someone that knows nothing about the space manage to get from point A to point B in a very quick and efficient manner? And this has created a problem for mass adoption. And there are a lot of tools. Some of them are really good, some of them maybe less so, but they are all scattered. There are a million ways that there are a million different tools all scattered around the internet, and you don't know where to start. Maybe there's some lack of education as well. So I think the biggest challenge right now is trying to simplify that space and pave the way for mass adoption for the next wave of investors, because we'll have it.
Yeah, I totally agree. What is your point of it?
I completely agree. I really feel like education is extremely important. Lots of people don't know about Web3, and we need to educate the people, I mean, for them to... And besides that, it also helps to collaborate a lot. Collaborations can get people into the industry as well. And over time, Web3 is only becoming easier and easier to allow people to get in.
And Taylor, what is your experience about this as you even go a step further with metaverse and educating in the metaverse? Like, what is the user experience there?
I think to both of their points, there's still a lot of friction. And so that's something that the industry knows is a big problem. Like, how do we make it so that the user doesn't even necessarily know that they're using crypto or that they're using blockchain as a backbone of the application? So yeah, just being able to onboard people quickly. I do think though, like when you get in first, you know, if I go and open a bank account in Malta, it might take a few months. In the US, it takes a couple hours. If I use Revolut, it's really fast. But there still is that friction point. So I don't think that necessarily is like the huge problem. I think it's just the day-to-day interaction, the accessibility of, you know, what's cold storage? How do I do this? You know, do I have to hold my key? What if I lose my key? There's just so many questions around accessibility and ease of use that you really have to invest a lot of time to not make a mistake that could be detrimental to your savings. So I think once everything is more abstracted, there's easier onboarding, and people still take that first step, but then when they're in the system, it's just smooth and easy. That's when I think we'll start to see it. And I do think also the metaverse can provide like a visual way of understanding it. Like you experience it and you go through it rather than having to tap buttons and click through. You can actually, and this is more abstract, this is longer term, but because it's spatial and experiential, you could just create like a journey that someone has to go on, and at the end, they're all signed up and they're integrated. So that's a longer term thing though.
Yeah, I can provide, I think, more of a builder perspective in the space. So when we talk about UX, there are, as they mentioned before, there are many aspects that we need to consider, right? So there is the self-custody of the assets, there is the interactions with the applications that involve crypto, there is interactions with the blockchains, there is interactions with centralized parties like exchanges, for example, Coinbase, Binance. And what they were mentioning, that a user usually that is just starting in crypto gets kind of overwhelmed, like they don't know exactly what to do. And unfortunately, most of the times they rely on trusting other parties, which I've been seeing lately that is maybe not the best choice in crypto, unfortunately. So I think really promoting the ability for crypto to take ownership of your own finance or your way of interacting with finance is super important. Building tools around helping users get access and ownership of their own access to finance is super important. And at the same time, I would say there are also huge regulatory and compliance barriers that we need to overcome right now. Some of these that we just mentioned are unfortunately still very hard to implement and to bring to the public because there is a lot of uncertainty in regulation from a compliance perspective, how crypto should be treated in the various aspects of of finance and our daily lives, like compared to like traditional money and traditional financial system. So I think like it will need a kind of work at like very widespread, and so from a technical perspective, from an educational perspective, from a legal and compliance perspective, and so on.
Yes, and trust is a very big issue as well. So, Jacob, what do you think how can the trust be resolved at this point in time, with the FTX collapse, for example, last week?
I mean, right now, actually, I mean, we know what we've seen. I think it's actually a great time for us to get more into DeFi, and we have seen a lot of DeFi, a lot of new. Even if you look on chain and the new DeFi wallets everywhere, people are moving into DeFi because of what happened, and it's not a bad thing. But it gets us back to what we were saying before. How can we, as a community, as builders, as teams in the space, collaborate and focus on the education side, on the UI and UX side? How can we focus on making this a simpler process for the public to get into the DeFi space?
Yeah, so, and NFTs is also a big topic at the moment. So as Zack, as you as an artist, how do you see the use cases? Where do you see the biggest use cases for NFTs?
So yesterday I had a panel and I was explaining how 95 to almost 98% of all NFTs are practically scams. And I say this because the remaining 5%, 2% are those people who are innovating, who are creating change, who are making NFTs, not just a JPEG, not just an image. They are using them really and truly as a filtering system that they can segment their normal followers to their super fans, these people who love all that they do and who can be brand ambassadors for what they do. So NFTs really has a long way to go, but as of right now, the structure that they're using is they're creating a lot of value by gifting these NFT holders, and it creates this kind of cycle where people who are on the outside versus the inside, people speak and they want to get inside this community. It's a case of psychology, of fear of missing out. So NFTs, they have value. What's great is you can prove that you own something, so you can prove that you're part of a community. So there is utility, there is use case, but then there's also NFTs that are just art-based, like you'd collect a piece of art. Maybe it's an investment. Maybe you invested in maybe someone like Beeple early on. You would have never known that you would have ended up being one of the best and most successful digital NFT artists, but you would have made a very good investment, for example. NFTs still have a long way to go.
Yes, and Taylor, how do you think the metaverse will transform education as you work in this, as this is your field of work?
So building off of the NFT point, the genesis moment for me, really realizing a couple of years ago how blockchain could work with education, was around credentialing. So if you earn a credential, then it's on-chain, it's provable, and that just is a big problem that exists with employers receiving resumes where they can't validate, did this person actually do this training? And then that sort of evolved into, wow, if you can take that a little bit farther and you have a whole, what we're calling a learning chain of learning information, and that becomes standardized, then you can start to train machine learning algorithms on this. You can start to understand where the gaps are in knowledge. So it just creates a very nice structured data set that's immutable, that is provable, that you have these skills. And then you start looking at like GameFi and DeFi as mechanisms that can come into the education space and create incredible incentives for students. So a student could actually make money as they learn if they're really putting in the time and they're putting in the work. If you're an educator and you're building courses and content that you put onto this platform, then now you can actually earn back tokens and get some governance rights in this platform and be a contributor to this community, rather than a lot of these platforms, the big education platforms that I won't name, where you just invest so much time, you build this content, you put it out there, and then you just pray that the company does what is best for the creators, when in reality you have no control. So I think the world is just moving in this direction of giving the community control, giving people access to the revenue and the profits and the value creation of the platform. And for something that, arguably education should be a fundamental human right. It should be generally like a public utility that everyone has access to. Everyone can get as much education as they want. So for educational projects, I think blockchain is actually incredibly well suited and incredibly important, because it can really, if you look decades into the future, I would be incredibly surprised if the future platforms were not all empowered with Web3 and structured in a way where the incentives were all aligned. I just don't see the traditional centralized model continuing into the future.
I mean, personally, for me, at the intersection between NFTs and metaverse, there is a lot to explore, and there is a lot of innovation possible. Like, what I think is that, as it was mentioned before, like right now, NFTs are mostly to represent, art in a digital form. But NFTs can actually, they are a form of digital ownership, right? So they can actually represent anything. They can represent insurances. They can represent houses. They can represent cars. They can represent anything that we can think of. So I think it's going to be really the next big thing in bringing the real world into the metaverse and merging everything together, and finally actually bringing a bridge between the real world and the crypto space.
Yes, I totally agree. So NFTs can be a proof of ownership for so many things, certificates in education, degrees, houses, I think we are heading into the right direction, definitely. It's still a long way to go, but also the bear market is the time to build. Now the hype is over, so now we can focus on building something great. And I thank you very much, all of you. We ran a lot of time for taking part of this panel, and I hope you enjoyed and got a bit of a glimpse of what the blockchain community in Malta is, and maybe some of you will consider moving to Malta as well, and then happy to join us. And I wish you an interesting 2 days ahead of the AIBC, and if you have any further questions, just come to us later, and we're happy to discuss.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.